America.
Welcome to the Costa Mesa Pettis Perspective. This is episode 22. Thanks for watching as always. And tonight we're going to be talking about the city council meeting that was yesterday the 2nd. Today is the 3rd. It should be tomorrow by the time we upload this. And please like, subscribe, helps us track the viewing. And also let us tell you that there's, I've said this before, but an Instagram, Costa Mesa Pettis Perspective too, for those of you that don't frequent Facebook. And so let's get started. But first of all, how about Virginia? How about New Jersey? How about Minneapolis? We the people are making it happen. So it's nice to see. Good job. And what I want to talk about tonight, this is a record short meeting of the council for the city council this week, which was nice. And the main thing that I wanted to discuss was their new business item number 1. And what this is, I'm going to read from the staff report a little bit, but I want to just tell you what it is, just kind of generally speaking. So this was, they were voting to extend it's an ordinance. They're voting to extend the ordinance that bans STRs, which is also known as short-term rentals. The 10th of November is when the moratorium ended, and what was on the agenda tonight was to continue that moratorium. So I'm going to read a little bit here. I'm not going to get into it too much on the details, but it's the title is Adoption of an Urgency Ordinance to Prohibit the Operation of Short-Term Rentals within the City of Costa Mesa with the exception of home sharing. By home sharing, they mean if you're living there, it's your property, you're living there, and allowing somebody to pay to stay there, it's okay. Short background on it. STRs can generally be described as rental of either an entire residential unit or a portion thereof for a period of less than 30 days. So we're talking about Airbnb. We're talking about VRBO. I've never heard of that one. Flipkey, Craigslist, and so on. So the city does not currently have a specific regulation related to STRs. There are several online host platforms that I just mentioned, and we don't currently have city law regulating those things. So just the history of how we got here. The city held a study session on October 13th, 2020 on this issue. And they adopted the moratorium prohibiting all short-term rentals in Costa Mesa effective November 10, 2020. And that was to be for an initial 45-day period. And the grace period ended on December 10, 2020. December 15, 2020, the council extended the moratorium prohibiting STRs, exempting owner-occupied home sharing STRs established by December 1. We just talked about that. Then the adopted moratorium as extended expires on November 10, 2021, which brought us to here. So the reasons back when this thing was first being talked about, the main 2 reasons for banning them outright, meaning you can't be in Costa Mesa and advertise on Airbnb, Craigslist, or anything. If you own your home and you go to Puerto Rico for 2 months, you are banned by city ordinance from using your home for Airbnb folks. The original impetus for all this was there was noise complaints, party houses, etc. But the real reason, as mentioned mostly here in the staff report, had to do with COVID-19. Somehow this is forcing people, somehow the pandemic was making these short-term rentals a bad thing. I'm not sure what the logic was there. And also the affordable home crisis was another reason used, as if to suggest that these STRs, if they weren't rented, would be given to people for affordable housing. Frankly, I think they would just they've laid vacant for the most part and did nobody any good. But so that is, so it was voted 7-0 by council today to extend that moratorium. And before I go into my thoughts, because this brought up some things for me, and I will tell you in the last part where I stand on this ordinance. But first, just to digress a little bit, to set the stage for it, I wanted to talk a little bit about the current climate. It's fitting that all these things are happening with Virginia and the voting going on in the defund the police movement failed. And I think a lot of this is related to the current climate. And this is going to be, forgive me, it's going to be a troll-friendly video. So all you people that want to tell me that I'm crazy or people of like mind are crazy, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and give my thoughts anyway on this. I believe since the pandemic started through now, which has been roughly 2 years, close to 2 years, at this point, the pandemic masking, mask mandates, and vaccination mandates, not vaccinations. And mind you, back up a little bit. I work in healthcare. I'm vaccinated myself. My wife's vaccinated. I'm not going to allow my child to be vaccinated, but I chose to be vaccinated, so I'm not anti-vax. Definitely not. I'm anti being forced to do it by mandate for any reason. But the current climate now, with all these things happening, is no longer about public health, in my view. This is now a giant power grab from mostly the far left. That includes the lockdowns, that includes education, it includes the critical race theory debate. All of this has to do with the far left using the pandemic as an opportunity to grow the federal government even more than it is. If you had told me 3 years ago we'd be talking $1 trillion, $2 trillion, $3 trillion, $5 trillion, that it would be beyond anybody's belief. And I think it's an unthinkable amount of money. But we're no longer in a pandemic. We're in an endemic. The pandemic's over, folks. And what I need to do is let everybody know what I feel. That was 2 years we have allowed ourselves as a community to let our liberties slowly erode under the guise of COVID-19. And it's gone. In the very beginning, pandemic, we had a whole lot. We understood this was a dangerous thing, continues to be a dangerous thing, but it is we didn't go about it the right way as a community. So at this point, it's a big, huge power grab. And I think it's very important that each and every person that is liberty-minded and freedom-minded take into account that our liberties are being eroded, and it's important to take a stance. And this isn't a crazy thing. This isn't a fringe idea. This is what our country was founded on, and it's threatened as we speak right now. Now, there's some good news in recent events. I like seeing what I'm seeing in the voting. But the thing about vaccine mandates is, where I land on this is I have sovereignty over my own body. And if I allow the government that's a red line for us in society, in my view. Sovereignty over my own body, meaning the government is not allowed to tell me or to tell anybody what to put in their body. And if we go ahead and let that go, and we've let a lot go up to this point, I believe there's no coming back from that. Because if you allow the government to tell you to put things in your body and inject things in your body against your will, all is lost, folks. So I think the body sovereignty is a red line for me. And I could go on and on and on about my concerns about our individual liberties right now, but I think we're in a moment in time where it's important, and I'm seeing it begin to change, but it's important that we as individual people in this country, free men, free women, assert our individual liberty. I'm not talking violent. I'm not talking rioting. I'm not talking yelling and screaming. I'm talking about what we've been doing. We need to continue to do it. We need to continue to stay strong. And parents speaking up, refusing to get the mandate if that's how you choose. No, kids aren't getting shots. Speaking to our local government, getting local government elected, people of like mind elected, so we can have a balance of power. And that's where I see it happening, and it needs to continue to happen. So swinging back around after I set the stage, when listening to City Manager Farrell Harrison, and by the way, I forgot Liberty has not made an appearance in a long, long time. So Liberty Alert goes to City Manager Farrell Harrison. So she talked about in her opening, in her report, she was answering a question that she said kind of quietly and quickly, but she said she's got a lot of communication on, or questions regarding the emergency declaration in Costa Mesa, and will it be extended? Can it stop so we can start loosening things up and getting back to work? I'd say she spoke for 10, 15 minutes on the pandemic. I was actually joking with somebody at breakfast the other day that there was a drinking game to be had. If you could listen to the council meeting, if you can bear it for that long, you would be hammered by the end if you took a shot every time she mentioned pandemic, COVID-19. Everything is thrown at the altar of COVID-19 and the pandemic. And she was using that as a basis. She said, well, the federal government still has their emergency declaration, the state does, and so we shall too. They could absolutely choose to lift it here, regardless of what the feds and the state do. And then she capped it off by saying, and it's all contingent, keeping it in place is a matter of the American Rescue Plan funds remaining in place. So I think everything leads to the American Rescue Plan Fund, which is the checks going out to everybody, not making a value judgment on people that get these checks. But this is what we're working with here and now. So I just wanted to kind of set the stage and give some liberty-minded talking points, and also where I land. And the reason I started thinking about all this, and as it relates to the extended moratorium, is private property rights kept popping up in my mind, and I need to remain principled on how I speak about things, how I think about things, and how I choose to be as a person. It's important to me to stay true to principles. And private property rights are one of the founding constitutional rights we have. And America's founders understood clearly that private property is a foundation not only for prosperity, but for freedom itself. And the Constitution protected property rights to freely acquire, use, and dispose of property. Okay, so what are we talking about here? So the Fifth Amendment, a lot of people think it's just a small line at the bottom of the Fifth Amendment. It is when we're talking about private property, but really related to specifically what we're talking about in this moratorium is the Fifth Amendment's taking or just compensation clause. And what that's talking about is there's two criteria that fall under the heading of nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Most people think that means outright by condemning the property and taking the title. Look, you can't, I'm taking your house. So most people think that's not happening. But in contemporary sense, it is also through what they call regulatory taking. So you can regulate private property to the point of you're rendering the individual's private property rights infringed upon. And I believe that this type of ordinance is an infringement on private property rights. Now I understand that loud parties are a nuisance. I understand that there's concerns with parking, and there's there was people that got up and spoke about their concern. I understand that. But if I'm an individual property owner, I own my home, and maybe I own two homes, and we're not talking about granny flats. That's a whole different thing. We're talking if I choose to rent out, put my my house up for an Airbnb listing to gain money on capital money, and I believe that is not a right that should be infringed upon just by ordinance. So the reason I think this is important is because the ordinances they're similar. You can think of city ordinances being similar to executive orders. Now, all presidents do them left, right. Same with local ordinances, but it's not law. It's not codified in city law. So either enact legislation or don't, and make it law, and that's it. So if it's law and it's made an actual law, then I'm also about law and order. So look, if the city government was able to legislate and create laws saying that you can't have STRs in the city ever again, that's fine. I'm a law and order guy. But when listening to the council talk about this, they even admit you could talk. I listened to Andrea Marr, and I listened to, I forget who else it was. I think it was Chavez. They are hearkening back to when they said, we realized when we originally started this, they got some heat from the private homeowners, that there are situations that this is just not right. This isn't banning STRs is for a select few parties. You're infringing upon the private property rights of individuals more so than others. So what they did is they said, look, we just need to look at it, delay this. We're gonna ban it for now, and we'll work on it. So we're still in that. Here we are almost a year later. A year later. And they still haven't figured out. What they're doing is they're buying time so they can figure out how to regulate or put regulations in for the STRs, which don't currently exist. So I'm not in favor of banning until they figure it out. I'm about private property rights. I'm about individual liberty. And that is where I fall out on this subject. And it's important to be kind to yourself, be good to each other. Together we can get it done. Not bye for now. I want to say one more thing, and I almost forgot to mention it, that myself and my wife did choose to resign our positions at CMRA as board members. And it is extremely important to us to say that this has nothing to do with any ill will towards CMRA as an organization, their mission. We are going to remain members, and we have nothing bad to say about the group or anybody currently on the board. Any of that speculation would be erroneous. We are loaded up in life right now. We've got a new dog. Well, she's not so new anymore. Kids that are in gymnastics, careers, city council meetings I attend to. So I need to stay balanced and focused. And it was just taking up way too much of my time at this particular moment. And I've also chosen not to run for sanitary in District 5. I had mentioned that casually in one other video, and with some counsel from some people that I trust out there, I am running for District 6 in 2024, and I believe that by running for San, I think I could win, but if I was to win, then I'd have to give it up in a couple years to run for District 6. I think that's doing a disservice to the city. I think I need to stay true to my commitments, and more to come on that. I just wanted to end with that, and you guys have a great night, and I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.